Introduction. It was known as the direct contacts with contemporaries of the events were Father Salvador Pons, Apolinario Mabini, and Manuel Artigas Cuerva. They spoke briefly about the event of 1872 Cavite Mutiny in connection with their other writings.
Father Salvador Fons, an Augustinian priest who first came to the Philippines in 1884, left his order in 1899 in Manila and written against the friars and collaborating with the founders of Iglesia Filipina Independiente. His writings should be treated with caution to those that may be considered historical in any way, as they were written in haste with similar carelessness and exaggeration.
3. Pons re-entered the Augustinians and spent the rest of his life in a monastery in Germany. Since he retracted his anti-friar and anti-Catholic writings as a whole, and spent much of the rest of his life in refuting them.
Mabini makes no claim to have had first had knowledge of the events, but without taking any position on the cause of the revolt, states clearly that the three priests were innocent of it. Mabini's chapter is not narrative but rather discussion of the place of martyr priests in the revolution. From his reference, the Burgos protest of his innocence on the scaffold, while Mabini was intimately involved with the newspaper support in Manila.
Artigas is a Filipino biographer, historian, and scholar. He has accounts about various aspects of Philippine history. His writing contains the fullest account of Cavite Mutiny, including those not previously published. Artigas has gathered testimonies and documents from many sources. He does not cite the sources of his document. The tendency of his work is to accumulate information to all kinds without giving much evidence of critical evaluation on his own part. With Artigas, the published stories of the events of 1872 based on immediate knowledge or direct information come to an end. All subsequent books and articles on the subject were based on sources, which further complicated the already difficult problem of the contradictions in the published accounts of the 4 decades after the event.
Evidences. He attributes the revolt of 1872 to the friars, as was said almost publicly by Pons. States clearly that the 3 priests were innocent. Mabini, the fullest account of the Cavite Mutiny and its background which has appeared up to the present. The account of Artigas combines the maximum of information, documentation, and detail with at least a minimum of critical treatment of his sources. Artigas provide the foregoing analysis of these early accounts of the Cavite Mutiny.
Evidence. The account of Pardo Teta Vera presenting from the emotional anti-friar tone that pervades it. Its evidence of being the most reliable, even though fairly general account except for its failure to recognize that the Latorre had also been suspicious of the Filipino reformists. That of Montero, apart from its anti-Filipino con in its position of revolutionary conspiracy, contained the most details and to all appearance most reliable account of the actual course of the revolt itself, as well as of the execution of the 3 priests. Of all those existing, the account of Artigas combined the maximum of information, documentation, and detail with at least a minimum of critical treatment of his sources. However, depending as heavily as he does on Regidor and having made use of such other unreliable sources as the Piernavia Echengoyen accounts, it falls far short of providing a fully reliable treatment of events of 1872.
The notion of a deliberate and concerted friar conspiracy to provoke a revolt which would enable them to eliminate their enemies comes solely from Regidor, whose description contains clearly false assertions. The story that such a provocation was carried out by means of a friar impersonating Burgos is first found in the torture extorted confessions of the friars executed at the orders of Bonifacio in 1897. This latter confession is clearly in contradiction with Regidor at several points. The lack of a reliable basis for this allegation against the friars does not, however, necessarily invalidate the more general assertion of Pardo de Tavera that a large group of conservative Manila Spaniards, including many or most friars, were suspicious of the Filipino priests and other liberal reformists from the time of De La Torre and were quick to make of the Cavite mutiny a revolution aimed at independence and even to favor the drastic punishments meted out.